is episode one.
Episode 1.
Episode one. Certified. This is the Certified Corner podcast. So let me just go ahead and give everybody who's watching this, and even for Grace, an understanding of what this is about. I have had the pleasure and the honor to be frustrated with how personal development is marketed. And I say the pleasure of being frustrated because sometimes being frustrated allows for opportunities, ideas to come about. Mm-hmm. And what I was witnessing in the personal development age was everybody was reading the same books. Everybody was either doing super aesthetically pleasing videos, or anybody was doing, they have that certain David Goggins or Andrew Tate or whatever personal development speaker you like behind the background, and they're at the gym and they're working out, which I do believe is effective. Trust me, I have made videos like that because they are effective at getting the message across. But then I looked at, okay, personal development itself is a very powerful subject. Then I look at podcasting, and they're not so powerful subjects. And so I said, well, we need something to bridge two powerful worlds together. The world of personal development, the world of how we deal with life, not in a therapeutic standpoint, but more in an actual practical sense. And then podcasting, which allows you to promote your voice to everyone out there. It doesn't, good, bad, or indifferent. The podcasting has that power. So I said, why not convince the world of something that's very personal, which is personal development, and project that personability in the form of a podcast?
I love it.
Hence the Certified Podcast. But today, we have our very first guest, Miss Grace Johnson. I want to let her speak for her. I want her to explain her story, how she got here, what she's doing, what does she believe like. So I want Grace to properly introduce herself, give the room a better understanding of who she is. So Ms. Grace, welcome to the podcast. I'm glad you're here.
Well, first of all, Aaron, I just want to say thank you for the even just the opportunity to be here. Like, for you to come up with an idea, to take it and run with it, and then to say, hey, I want you on my podcast. Like, it means a lot to me, and it says a lot about you and where you're going in your life. And so I'm excited for your podcast. I'm excited to see people get impacted in a way, because I've seen your journey, and I've seen the exactly what you said, the frustration with personal development, the frustration with this, and to be able to make this podcast to serve other people in that way is going to be really cool to see how it plays out. And so I'm excited for you. But
thank you so much.
As far as a little bit about me, like, I started my personal development journey in college soccer, in athletics. I had to sharpen the mental side of my game. I had to sharpen that stuff. And so I got introduced to the actual world of personal development in 2015 from our personal development coach that came and actually worked for our soccer team. And so she introduced all of the different concepts of just literally, like, actually working on the mind was a skill set. And I was just blown away by it. And so since 2015, all the way up until 2024, almost a decade of personal development in certain areas. And I can tremendously say, like, it really does play a factor into how your overall everything plays out. If your mind is sharp, you're sharp. If your personal development is sharp, you're sharp. And it allows you to navigate the world in a way better way than you used to before. And all it is an information gap. And so a little bit about me, I played sports all growing up. I was a military brat, so I moved every 3 to 4 years. So I had to get really good at people skills. I had to get really good at making friends. I had to get really good at literally going into new situations, assessing the situation, and then picking the right friends, picking the right situations to be in, and avoiding the ones that were not going to be beneficial to me. And I did a really good job of that. But that was a skill set bred into me from growing up and having to do that. It's more of a survival tactic. And now getting to do that in the business world and friends is really beneficial. So super grateful for that. Long story short, played soccer all of my college career, won 5 championships, made it to the Elite 8. Like, we did some really cool things that I never thought were going to happen in my sports career. And so had a really awesome time doing that, and then earned an opportunity to be on staff for the same team that I played for. And so they paid for my school. I worked for them. So I got my master's degree in communication while I was a graduate assistant for DBU, Dallas Baptist University. And so being a part of a team has always been something that I've thrived in. Being a player, a factor, a member, whether it's the key player, whether it's the person that holds the team together from a personality standpoint. Like there's different roles that we play in teams, and I've learned that along the way. And every role is insanely valuable. And so now getting to play the game of life and finding my players and finding my coaches and finding my key players and finding the players that are there for the personality, like those matter so much, and that's how I view life. And so it's become this really fun game that we get to solve and we get to play and we get to run towards championships together, whether that's in our finances, whether that's in our mindset, whether that's with our relationships or fitness. Like all of these things encompass now. I get to play the ultimate game of life. And so I'm super excited. I'm glad we met freaking like 2021 standing in line at an event. Like I just remember your energy being up here and I was like, that guy. I want to be around his energy. And 4 years later, we're now in the same city, getting to work on a lot of things together, and really building that friendship and relationship in business and as well as outside of that. And it's been awesome. It's been amazing.
Yeah, it's so beautiful that I want to connect how you've been able to attach athletics to real life, where I, even myself being a track athlete in high school, it allowed us to teach certain lessons that are applicable today. Like sometimes we don't even know that our coaches is giving us game that we're going to be applying, 10 to 15 years later. So I remember running track, and my track coach has always taught me, and every track runner can relate to this, is always finish through the line. Mm. You never slow down before the finish line. You always finish through it. There's always that last ditch effort. And there was a runner, Quincy Hall, at the Olympics, was a prime example of digging deep at the end to finish the race. And you can notice how other runners were slowing down, but he was speeding up, right? So even taking athletics, and you talked about soccer and being on this championship winning team, being offered to work with that championship winning team and then pay for schooling. But now you're taking those attributes from soccer and applying them in real life. And it's almost like it provides us a lens of how we like to look at life because of the previous activities that we did. So your way of, and correct me if I'm wrong here, your lens of life is through the attachments and the lessons that you learned from soccer. Yeah. Like that is the lens. Okay, so that's the lens you wear. And we all have to understand when it's time to wear those glasses. Mm-hmm. When is it time to put on the different lenses and change how we need to look at things? So in business, it's a fair enough statement of looking at it through a soccer lens. Okay, if I'm going to be running a business, if I'm going to be even just building a community around myself, who are my key players? Right, these are your 2 to 3 closest buddies. These are like your best friends for life that you take bullets for. Yeah. Then you have your friends, still role. Like you have role players, they play their role. Yep. But then also, I think what we run into is that for whatever reason is it in athletics, we're okay with playing our role, but in life, we're not okay with playing our role. It's weird how we're okay with, well, I think it has to do with financial compensation, but that's just me. I think it has to do with finances. But anyway, we have that ideal of, okay, I play a certain role when it's time to play the game. But I also have to understand that I play a role in some people's lives where my role in this person's life is not the same role that I play in somebody else's life. And then we have to, as people, have to understand our positioning.
100%.
It's all about our positioning. And I want to dive into that positioning aspect because that is something that I see you do. You're really good at knowing how to position yourself in rooms because of your youth. You had to position yourself every 3 to 4 years. You almost knew at some point, okay, it's almost time to, all right, we're 3 years into Chicago. Next year, I'm moving to Texas. Like I know my dad is gonna be moving me somewhere. So talk to me about positioning. How does Grace find her best position? How does she go about it? Give me the athletic breakdown. Give me the recap of the game that you play in your head of positioning. What does that look like? How do you do
Well,
that?
I would say when it comes to positioning, first first thing that I always do is observe. I'm like, who is the one running the show? Who's the one leading? Who's the one supporting? Who's the teammate that's always late? Who's the you know what I mean? Like you're just trying to articulate where people are in their process. So for instance, I went to an event a week or so ago, and I'm like, okay, got the person running the play. You've got the person's running the play, key teammate. Okay, what's her role in this scenario? Because it's not the same role that she plays in other areas. In her own business, she's the A player, or she's the coach. But in this role, in this scenario, she's playing the player coach mentality. She's playing the best player. And so it's always really cool to see how you can bend and flex within your own personality in each given scenario. So my first biggest step is observing what everybody's doing in a group setting. Whether it's you've got the door holder, you've got, when you walk into an event, you've got the person who's helping out with all of the tickets or whatever it is. You have to know that somehow, some way, they're connected to the main person, because how else is the main person getting all this stuff done? Like, they've got their friends in position to be helpful in those scenarios. So, knowing that those people are their friends, then you get to know them. Don't ever be mean or rude to the first person you meet at an event. Like, it just blows my mind. I'm like, guys, just be nice to people. Like,
Just be nice.
just, just everybody's trying to figure it out. And I genuinely say, like, the next step after observing and kind of figuring out the lay of the land and like who's who and that kind of thing, once you figure that out, genuinely being interested in other people, genuinely asking real questions to real people to get to know them, not because of what they have, but because of who they are, and not because of who they're connected to, but genuinely being interested in them so that you can build a relationship, because everything in life is relationships. And so being able to connect with so many people in a given scenario, in a given environment, ultimately word travels so fast it's not even funny. So if you're mean to the first person you meet, um 10 people are already going to know that by the time you even meet the person you really wanted to know. They're going to know that. And so you don't want to knock over your freaking you don't want to destroy your chances of building a relationship with somebody else because you couldn't figure out this first one. And so,
Yeah.
and I'm like, there's obviously a lot of scenarios playing out in my head, so not everyone is exactly like that, but I've just been put in those positions a bajillion times, and I'm like, all of these scenarios come together. Um, yeah, so observing and then really genuinely asking questions. I have a challenge with one of my friends, and we always do this. It's probably my favorite thing, is ask as many questions to the other person and be genuinely curious that they get confused and they're like, wait, I don't even know your name. Like, how long can you go and ask somebody questions until they go, hold on, hold on, hold on. What is your name? Like, they didn't even get a chance to know who you were because you were so interested in them. And it's a running joke with one of my friends, and I love it because we do it all the time when we go to networking events, and people really do they feel that because they're like, oh, this person really does care about me, because they didn't spend a single ounce talking about themselves. And so that's been really powerful when it comes to being in rooms and learning about different people in different scenarios and getting to meet and build genuine relationships. I put on my Instagram the other day of like, how did we meet? Or like, it was like, help me win a bet. How did we meet? And it was like in person at an event outside of Texas at an event. And then it's like we keep those relationships on social media. That's how you and I met. met at an event. We kept relationship through the social media apps, and being able to keep relationships long enough for them to develop into something, whether it's a deal, whether it's an opportunity, whether it's an invite, whether it's something mutually beneficial, whether it's a whole business idea. All of that starts with how interested were you at the beginning? How much did they feel your um, genuine authenticity at the beginning of the relationship? Not were you trying to get them, not were you trying to meet them to know somebody else, to get to somebody else, like genuinely be interested in them. So that's
Yeah, it's and I love that. It's you're starting out with observation, then you have the ability to ask questions. And then at that point develop a relationship.
Yep.
When you have the keen ability to observe the room. And then like we can add like a subsection of that. You're not just observing, you're actively observing. Because observing just to observe, like observing, you can't confuse observation with watching.
Yeah.
There's two different things. What observing is now you're mentally and you're logically trying to analyze the situation. Like to observe is to analyze. When you're watching, you're just looking just to look. You're looking for pure joy. You're just looking for entertainment. Like my dad and I, when we traveled to Italy, he'd be like, son, come here. He'd be like, we're just going to people watch. Just going to people watch. And then because now we're just sitting there watching. There's no end goal to us watching. We're watching now. And so what people have to understand is that the difference between observing and watching is that if you're going to say that I am observing, then there is a mission, there is an end goal that you are trying to accomplish in your observation. Or there is a question that you had in your mind that you're trying to answer in your observation.
Mm-hmm.
So positioning, even though you're observing, positioning comes into play is when you are now able to observe who the players are, because then you know who the players are, that prepares you for the type of questions you're about to ask. So now it ties into it. So you have the observation and you understand your players. That allows you to know what kind of questions to ask. And asking questions for the sake of asking questions is not the same thing. You have to be able to there has to be intentionality in your question asking, because if I just go up to Grace and I start asking questions like, what's her favorite color, where she goes from? There's not the goal that I've set myself ablaze on in my observation period has now become a waste of energy. We've now wasted time because now I'm just asking questions to ask questions. If my goal to observe was to be friendly and then I'm gonna ask friendly questions, then that is what you need to do. That is what your mission is gonna be. But if I'm there at a networking event, and if I'm at a networking event and I'm gonna have a conversation and my goal is to meet as many people in this room, then I'm gonna have questions set up to allow me to meet as many people in this room. If your point about observing is going to go, okay, my purpose of being here in this environment, in this space, is to close a deal, then that means that my lining of questioning has to be different. And then that allows for tenure. And I think relationships, yes, we always say it's a two-way street, but I think what people do not understand is the value and the substance of the relationship. Allows for the opportunities to come. So if the relationship that you're developing with the person, place, or thing, and this is for anything, if there's a lot of substance behind it and there's value behind it, then the level of opportunity is going to come your way. For an example, I have a Clifford dog. I've had my Clifford dog since I was 16. I've given that item a lot of substance, a lot of value that price cannot take away from it. That's why I keep it, because I've developed that. I've put value and substance into the thing that I'm having a relationship with. Mm-hmm. So in business, or even just like we're talking just personal development in general, but this is so applicable in life, where if the substance and the value of the relationship that you're trying to develop is not there, then do not expect opportunities and good things to come from it. You're now just friends. You're now just cool acquaintances, and that has to be okay. You have to be okay with that, because sometimes the things that we are trying to develop relationships with, once again, they have a role to play.
Right.
And that role player may not be the key player for you of getting the objective of scoring the goal. So maybe your objective is to I want to start. I want to say I want to become a photographer, and you do photography, and I want to tailor this into your photography because this is so huge. If I want to say as a photographer, I need to find a way where I can get my photography skills out there. Mm-hmm. Like I have. So then my key observation at a networking event is, okay, who has a platform that has a wide enough influence where my photos can amplify their story?
Yep.
That's kind of what a photographer is doing. Yes, you have your own selfish intentions of, okay, I like to just take good pictures, but there's almost a role that a photographer plays that a photographer even has to understand in their role, mm-hmm. in their observation, and they're able to develop a relationship, and they're able to ask questions because they understand as their role is to amplify another person's story.
100%.
With my own creative twist. And so speak on that really quickly, this photography thing, because as a photographer, you now have to be comfortable being in the back seat. How do you handle that? How do you handle knowing that as a photographer, as much as I want to build my own brand, I have to build my brand through the lens that we talked about, through the lens of somebody else's vision? So how do you handle that? Like, talk to me, like, how do you deal with that?
It's a really cool question because it's all about your perspective. Because even the way you ask that question, you sound like it's the second seat. Whereas I see it in the sense of I get to help so many business owners build their empire, build their content creation collection, capture those moments that nobody else can do or that nobody else did capture. And so therefore I don't see it as like I'm living in their shadows kind of thing. I'm like, I'm the one person that they trust to capture this moment. And so it frames it in the sense of like, they actually believe that I can do this. and that's how it was the first couple of, like, people that were like, take my photos. And I was like, you trust me to get this? And I was like, cool, let's do it. And then you do it and you get that feedback of like, I captured the moment. But think about a moment, it doesn't ever come again. And so you either capture it or you don't. So I love the kind of like high stakes, because it brings me back to sports in the sense of like, you either get it or you don't. You either make the shot or you don't. You either save, like, you get it or you don't. And the fact that somebody, and this goes back to my personal belief on pressure is a privilege. And so when somebody gives you the opportunity to be put in a pressure situation, they believe that you're capable of doing that enough for you to do that. And so I actually love the pressure. I love the, can you make this happen? I love that kind of intensity with it. I also don't look at it in the sense of like, my career is solely dependent on if I capture their moment. Like, their career is their career. I get to be a part in it. I get to play a certain role in their process to help them build their brand, build their business. But my career is my career, and I get to determine who I work with. And so whether it's this person, like, coming from it, like, my career is still my career. And so that's why it doesn't feel like a backseat kind of role play. It's like, I get to handle my career. Also, I get to help you build your career. And the same way for them, it's the law of reciprocity. They have somebody helping them build their career. So the conversations, the depth of relationship built, the substance that you're talking about is so much deeper because there's that mutual respect. There's that, I'm building this, you're building this. Let's see how we can make this build together.
The law of reciprocity that you spoke on. Yeah, exactly.
Now, if it's not there and they're just like the worst client ever, then it's like, I don't want to shoot your photos. Like, I'm not a part of this mission. I really don't align myself with your mission. Therefore, I don't want to shoot it. And there's certain things that I'm just like not down to go shoot. Like, if I don't like your message or your vision and see where you're going and the people that you help, then I'm probably not going to shoot it because I don't want to be a player in that team. And so it really does matter. And I think a lot of photographers, they'll just go shoot whatever. And the reason they don't want to do it anymore is because they're burnt out. And they're burnt out because they're not in the the team dynamics that allow them to thrive.
They position themselves in they're on a team. Well, I'll say it like this: they're in a team where the end game doesn't align with their end game.
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes we don't have to reach the finish line at the same time, but we all know that we're going towards a similar finish line. And the reason why I wanted to bring up photography with you is because photographers have this very powerful positioning. They have to be in the right position, understand angles, understand. They have to be really good at seeing the final product. Their ability to cast a vision visually in their mind, and they have to be able to take someone's words that's given to them. Like if you're my client, I say, yo, like we're about to go on a trip to Mexico, and I want you to take martial arts sensei style photos this entire trip to make it look like I'm this wisdom old guy. So now the photographer now has to create this mental framework in their head of, okay, he's been giving me some words, some pieces of data. I now have to take that data and put it in my mind, into my computer, in my hardware, and then run my programming. Like this is what we're talking about, the vision, right? My vision is the program. Now I'm running that program with the data that's been given to me. Can I make a picture? Can I create the product? And so we have to, what you alluded to very beautifully is that in the positioning of photographers, and this is, I hope people can understand that this is deeper than photography, is that does your vision, your hardware, is the data that you're able to receive from whether it's a person, whether it's an environment, whether it's a team of people, is their data that they're pushing out, is that going to function in the hardware of your life? Is that going to run in your framework? Is it going to run the program that you want to cast with your vision, through your lens? Like we have to. That's where it's so keen of. I'm so funny. I keep want to use your 3 lessons right there because it's so powerful about positioning. Your ability, because that's going to teach you to observe different things. Because you've learned how that program felt in your body. You know how that made you feel. And so now you have to change the way you observe, but you also have to understand what parts of the program did feel good. What parts and what attributes and what configurations of this experience that I had was actually beneficial to me. And if I can extrapolate that and then continue to ask questions, this now allows you to ask better questions. Okay, I observed that working with me and you as a client, you're a great guy, you're a great person, but the vision itself didn't meet the configurations that I've had set. But then you can say, okay, maybe he's a great person, but then my problem was finding the right vision. And then your next time going out, you search for the vision. You might not even care about the person, but you might just be looking for the vision. Does the vision for make sense? Okay, I found a vision that makes sense, but now the person's a complete asshole.
Yeah.
Okay, now we know, how can I find a guy for my first one and find a vision for my second one and find the perfect client? Okay, what kind of questions can I ask myself and the client in this meeting? So now I can identify, or I can be able to break down the barrier or find some things on this list from the person and the vision to create the perfect client. And that observation with the right questions to ask will now allow you to deepen the relationship. And then as you continue to work with them, the relationship begins to develop further and further and further. And those walls of what they truly want to do, why they're truly doing what they're doing, now you can understand of now how can I add value to that person.
100%.
Now, because now you've broken down those barriers, you get the privilege of understanding what do you play in their life, because at some point they're going to tell you.
Yep.
They're going to tell you. And I know for a lot of us, being especially somebody like yourself in business, doing photography, and you're traveling, have you ever felt a moment where you didn't really know what your position was? What role did you play? Like talk to me, if you don't mind, expanding upon a moment where, and this is a 2-parter because I want this to be full of depth here. I want people to understand this because I know you're very articulate and you're very passionate about what you do. So I want this to make sense for those because I get you when we meet on private. I get you,
Right.
but I want us to be able to understand grace. So could you walk us down a memory where you felt I didn't really understand my positioning here, and that crumbled you? And then your second part is what did you do in that moment? What were some of the decisions or questions that you ask yourself to get you out of that moment so you can be able to move forward and continue prospering? I know that's a deep question. Maybe I know it's long rooted, but I wanted it to have some depth. So
yeah, I think one of my experiences when it comes to like your first couple of clients or your first few things, like in photography, videography, you're doing a lot of stuff for free, or you're doing it for access, or you're doing it for just purely building relationships. And so there was one instance where I had a client that paid me, I had a client that didn't pay me, and I had a client that I really wanted to shoot for. And so I was like, but they were all at the same event. And in one scenario, I just didn't make things clear with the client that was asking me to do stuff. And I was doing it because I love them, wanted to support them, and it was a very big value add. And she added a lot of value to my life. So I'm like, this is one of those reciprocity things. But I ended up saying, like, hey, I can't go do this for you because I just got asked to go do this. And I really wanted to make this, I really wanted to land this client. And so I went and I did this, but her expectation was that I was doing photography for her. And so I basically pissed her off to a point where she pulled me aside the next day and she was like, it's not a good way to treat your clients. And I was like, in my head, I was like, I didn't know you were my client this weekend. Like, I literally didn't. But it was just, it could have all been solved if I was just very honest with, like, this is my capacity. This person paid me to go do this. I really want to go work with this client, so I'm going to go do stuff for free. And I'm going to take every opportunity to be able to do that. Also, when can we set aside time to do your stuff so I don't leave you hanging? And it could have been solved with my own communication, but it wasn't. And it came to my understanding. It was like, oh, I really did just like piss off a client that I love dearly, that has added so much value to my life, that and I was like, oh, this stuff matters. Like, my ability to communicate, not only like, and she would have been totally fine if I would have said, like, hey, here's this opportunity, I have to go seize this opportunity. But because I didn't communicate effectively, it hindered our relationship for a second. And it was a really good growth. And like, still this day, she loves me. I've done more stuff for her, and I like more video work. And but it was a really come to grace moment of like, hey, we really have to get good at communication, understanding our expectations, our clients' expectations, and the ability to understand the opportunity costs. Opportunity costs in photography, videography, in that industry is vast. If you go nail a shot, you have a career in for one client. You could land them for forever from one moment. But if you don't go take that moment, you probably would, that you just don't know when that moment's going to come again. And so the opportunity costs are really big. But maintaining relationships and genuine like love and appreciation for your previous clients is a very big, like, you can lose them and they talk bad about you for the rest of your life. Like, so you have to play this balance game. And yeah, that was probably one of my biggest lessons, is understanding where you're at in the process, where their expectations are, where yours are at, and just the whole scenario. And being aware, because I was just so hyped up. I was like, yes, let's go do this. Seizing the opportunity, as every good entrepreneur does, not realizing that the other implications at play.
Yeah, and it's if we're going to seize the opportunity, we have to be okay with there can be possible consequences at the end of it.
Yeah.
But we cannot be scared of that. Like, we can't stop and be paralyzed in the what could happen versus what is happening.
Yeah.
What is happening is that you've been given an opportunity to do this thing. What could happen is your other clients getting pissed.
Yeah.
But we attach ourselves to the what could instead of the what is way more. So what is actually happening? I got an opportunity. What could happen? People being pissed. But yeah, that could is a what if. That could is an open-ended but.
Yep.
But when you talk about what is, it is. This is a fact. Saying what is happening is that means it is true to the bone.
Yep.
And then after the situation happened, I think what people have to become better at. Don't be mad at yourself for taking an opportunity. Be mad at yourself. I wouldn't say be mad at yourself for the opportunity. Don't beat yourself up for taking the opportunity and then dealing with consequences after it. Don't beat yourself up, because at the same point, my dad always says this, and I'm gonna be saying this for a while on pretty much all of my podcasts, because I want this to be a very stickler to what I said. You can only handle your delivery, not the response. That's all you can handle. So the way you deliver, the way you attack your opportunities, you can't control the aftermath of what happens if you take it.
Yeah.
But do not let the aftermath of what could never really even truly happen stop you until you know what's right there in front of you. Yes, you at the time, you didn't really truly understand that your other client was going to be mad, because you didn't even understand that you was really their client. But that's not your fault. That's not something that you can beat yourself on. What you could beat yourself up on is not taking the opportunity, dealing with that client, and the opportunity cost of this one's completely out the window, and now you may never know.
Yeah.
Now you may never know it, not at all. So it just comes from that, and then understanding that this is cyclical. It cycles. It comes through. It will happen, repeated over and over. And just in the world of what I specialize is in trading, it's the same thing. It's just like the market. The market will always move in patterns and will give you telltale signs of what is about to happen.
Facts.
The universe is very forgiving. It will tell you when good things are about to happen and when bad things are about to happen. We can feel it. We know it. We have it in our spiritual essence. When you develop that spiritual essence, you'll be able to recognize it. But let's just say it in the practical sense. You know that if you're in traffic, you're not going anywhere. So what's the point of you even trying to beat traffic when it's presented in front of you that this is the pace on which you're moving?
Facts.
That's the same thing with life. You have to understand what kind of pace you're running. Understand that it is your pace. This is your tempo. You set it yourself beautifully. Understanding your capabilities and your limitations, and then being honest about them, because then that allows, and I'd love for you to explain, does that build a better relationship, or does that hinder a relationship? The more honest and transparent you are about your limitations and in your capabilities.
In every experience I've ever had, the more honest, the faster I communicate, and the more clear, the better it is. So time, urgency, what it is, and how truthful it is, like how honest you can be with it. People reciprocate that so much more than not communicating in time, not having all of the details, and genuinely, if you say you can do it and overextending, there's one time where I literally was like, yeah, I can do it, and I just overcommitted and I underdelivered, and that learning lesson of overcommitting and underperforming basically is way more of a worse conversation to have than saying, look, I can do this, and the person's like, okay, that's it, that's what you can expect of me. And it might be less than what they wanted, but at least you're not giving them this high expectation and under delivering, because that stays with you forever. And you don't want to be somebody that continuously does that. Here and there, every once in a while, you're going to drop the ball. Being okay with saying, hey, I dropped the ball, I'm gonna fix it, 100% okay. People understand. People are people.
Self-accountability.
So,
you're holding yourself accountable because you understand, right? Continue. Right. I didn't mean to cut you off, but continue.
No, for sure. And that's been my experience, is urgency and communication, and as honest as possible.
And you do that with yourself? Like, you do that even not in photography? Is that something that you even hold to your own personal morals and standards?
I would say I do it more in business, and I'm learning to do it more in life. Because in life we're just like, oh yeah, I can do it all, and then you're like, my capacity's here. and I keep trying to do everything up here, and you're just not there. And so learning to do that with yourself. Um, I previously did 75 hard this year, doing the whole Live Hard program. And one of the best things in that challenge that it teaches you to do is do the things you say you're going to do when you say you're going to do them, and give yourself no excuses. As much as the excuse is there, not allowing yourself to fall to those excuses, because the next day, when you say you're going to do something and you actually do it, you're like, I already did it. I know I can do this. I know I can trust myself. Now, if it's a rest day and you still got to get your things done when you're on the program, 75 hard, but if it's a rest day, you don't need to be doing max capacity stuff. You still get the job done. Your 100% looks different. And being okay with your 100% every single day looking different, in my experience, has been a great adjustment, because I used to think 100% had to feel the same way every day. And if it didn't feel the same way every day, then I felt like I was not living up to my standards.
Oh
When
man,
when we know that our 100% is different every day, and allowing ourselves to do that.
that that was. Hold on, I'm just gonna repeat what you just said. Being comfortable knowing that your 100% looks different every day.
Mm-hmm.
Jeez. That makes me sit back all the times, even in my own life, where I was chasing the feeling of 100%, not understanding that my 100% didn't have to feel 100%.
Yep.
And that it backs down to perspective. How do you even perceive what 100% looks like? Where there might be days where I'll use my dad as well. My dad will come home and do the bare minimum of things. The actions that he was doing looked bare minimum, but that was 100%. That was being 100% present, right? The job, the 100% wasn't making sure that you were hungry, make sure you got clothes in your back, make sure that your food. The 100% was showing you that there is a male figure here in the household, that there is an example here, and you're 75 hard. And even I'm learning this now with me working out often, is that even on my rest days, I still got to take my creatine and my protein.
Right.
Right. I still have to take care of those things. I just still have to have nutrition in my body, even at my physical rest, but that doesn't mean my mind is stopped. Mm-hmm. There might be days where our physical bodies are moving 100%, but our mind is not there. But yet we're able to get the job done. But we're still giving it 100%. But yet I would say the areas of where we can pour 100% may all be at different balances, but the final product itself is still 100%. But then yet there might be days where, okay, I'm gonna pull out of my trauma box for today, like for whatever. I'm gonna pull my 100% from this area of my life, and then less in the other areas of my life, because the environment that I'm in is only asking of this version of this lens of Aaron to act in this environment, because of what we observed, what the key players want. So now we get this full circle moment. Now we're back to full circle again, and where being able to now know where we pull our 100% from.
Exactly.
And the better we can get understanding of where we're pulling 100% from, now we're not chasing the feeling of 100%. We can operate at the knowing that we're at 100%. Mm-hmm. But yet the physical feeling of it is kind of died away. But that was crazy. that really makes this whole 100% full circle. Like, is this something that you just sat down and just contemplated about one day? You're like, was this after that experience that you really had to ask yourself that point?
I would say it's been an evolution of like understanding work capacity, because we've been to a lot of events. You understand what it feels like to be in an environment where you're in full immersion. Even in sports, you're in a high pressure situation for a small period of time. But the rest of the time, you're practicing, you're preparing, you're sleeping well, you're training, your mental work, I even did breathing training in college, like practiced breath work, strapped up to a monitor, had to make sure my heart rate and my breath work were in alignment, in coherence. And like, that's work. But did eye vision training. Like, those were individual little pieces of the puzzle for this game time. And we associate everything else outside of game time as not working, when in fact we're giving our 100% in a completely different capacity. And so, the same way we do life, my rest day now, I'd say over the last 3 years, I had a mentor of mine who literally was like, I will not work with you unless you take Sundays off. And it didn't have to be Sunday specifically, but one 24-hour period of time where I didn't owe anybody my time. I didn't do anything for anybody. I made sure that I was good. I filled my cup back up. And still to this day, she won't work with me unless I take a day off. If I text her on a day that I'm supposed to be off, she's literally like, "You're fired. Go take a rest day." And because the importance of resting at 100% allows us to operate the rest of the week at 100% in whatever capacity we're doing that at. So when I know I'm going on a trip, or I know I'm going on an event, I make sure everything else in my life, I make sure that I've hydrated before, I make sure that I'm well slept before. I used to not. I used to like stay up late with everybody because you're in an environment where you're with a bunch of people and you're like, oh, I want to spend time with you. Also, I don't show up the next day like it's game day because I spent too much time out and about and running around and interacting with other people. And so if I treated event like shooting days as game days, everything else leading up to that is preparation. But my preparation is a different 100%. In same way in life, like if we prepare, if we set phrase, if we plan to fail, I don't know what it was. Blank on that one, but
if you fail to plan, you plan to fail. If you
yeah,
fail to plan, you plan to fail. Exactly.
yeah,
Right.
that one. And it's like, even after the event, I knew I was going straight from event to airport to get my car to go to work, my actual 9 to 5 job. I knew that was going to be a long day. So the following day, I knew for a fact that I set myself up for a win, in the sense that I didn't book any work. I was like, I'm going to bed at like 7 p.m. and I'm going to sleep for probably 12 hours. But I can make it for this day that I have to go be responsible in my current job, in your current roles. And so it's knowing how to navigate your own capacity, your actual time that you know you're good, along with knowing how to 100% rest. I think that conversation is so in hustle culture, entrepreneurship. Everybody's like, yeah, I slept 5 hours and I worked all day. And I'm like, that doesn't excite me. That also doesn't impress me. What impresses me is the fact that you have a body, a physical body that you treat well, that you actually use to your fullest capacity. And you can't do that if you keep depleting it of nutrients and depleting it of sleep. And so I know for a fact I could run laps around you because I sleep more. And I get more done when I'm awake. So that whole kind of like evolution of understanding where our energy goes and how to effectively use 100% or be 100% is not the same 100% every single day.
Man, because that hustle culture, that mentality of the whole 4 hours of sleep, 3 hours of sleep makes sense in certain capacities.
Certain
It only makes sense in certain capacities where you're getting, because then 4 to 5 hours of sleep in a capacity where that is what is asked of you makes sense. Even in days, I have days where I sleep 4 to 5 hours. There'll be there are, and it's like a season, right? There's a tying this to sports. There's a season to be in this, to operate in this capacity, but then there's also a season of rest. Even the best of the best gives themselves a season of rest.
Mm-hmm.
All the Olympians who ran at the Olympics, they gave themselves probably 2 to 3 weeks, and then they started competing again. They gave themselves the opportunity of rest. Even NBA players, there's a thing called the off season.
Yep.
They don't. This just because it's their off season doesn't mean they're not 100% on. but they're giving their 100% to the off season. They're giving 100% of being a dad. They're giving 100% of being the mom at that time, because then during the regular season, the people in that environment understand that they got to switch their mentality, because if they don't switch their mentality from that off to on season, the financial compensation that they're going to be earning during this on season is going to affect their off season.
Yep. Very
and
true.
so I think honestly, the more that we can harness the 100% effort in the season that we're in, the financial compensation is going to be able to cover the time when it's time for you to rest.
Yep.
And I think people don't want to rest because they're worried about the financial backing, that I don't have the financial capability, or I have not created enough mental real estate in my mind to allow myself to rest. And so even myself, I like to give Sundays my day to kind of just dilly-dally.
Yeah.
Just kind of dilly-dally. And I'm saying I'm dilly-dallying not at 80%. I'm still giving myself 100% effort. Like when I wash my clothes, I'm 100% focused on washing my clothes. I'm 100% focused on meal prepping for the week. I'm 100% focused on getting proper sleep. Like even when I went to bed, like even last night, I went to bed around 10 o'clock at night. Someone called my phone at 12. I woke up, answered the call, then went back to sleep.
Yeah.
But I didn't wake up today until 10 p.m. Even though I went to bed at like 12:30. I didn't wake up till 10.
Yep.
I knew we had this conversation for today, but I still gave myself, I said, at what ample time do I need to have to prepare for this? About an hour. Okay. I can wake up at 10:30, even 11 o'clock, and still feel adequately rested. So now when I approach myself in this conversation where I have to be 100% for this conversation, I've created that space. And we as entrepreneurs have to be okay with, once again, full circle, or even observing not even environment, observe yourself.
Yep.
My mom always said that, man, one thing about you, son, is that when you're mad, you're really just hungry. You're really just hungry. When you're hungry, you get mad. So when you're properly fed, you're not going to be as mad. But that was my mom observing me. And now I even observe that stuff within myself. I'm able to give myself observations like, well, if I'm going to go to my job, I like my keys to be in the same spot every time.
Yep.
So I know they're there. And that's just like for my dad. And then you observe like, oh, wow, I did pick that up from my dad. I did pick that up from my mom. I'm grateful to now understand I found good qualities in both of them that I'm able to act out in my life. And I've observed that. Okay, now let's make it mine.
Right.
Now let's make this me. Okay, I've observed, I've gotten these pieces of information from them. Now I can observe it in myself. Okay, now let's ask myself questions. Do I even like what they do? Do I even like that? Do I even like that feeling? Do I even like that action? It's a good question to ask. Because then, okay, here's another question to ask. How do I act or respond to people when I'm tired? How do I act? Am I super energized when I'm tired, or am I real like, And I learned about myself when I have one-word answers to people. When I know I start giving one-word answers, I feel lethargic. I might not be moving lethargic, but I feel lethargic. That is my sign when people are like, hey, can you do this? I can go, hey man, look, I would love to help you. But the capacity the quality and the capacity of what I can do to help you. And we all know, I'm only saying that fancily, but we all know we're not saying that, but we're thinking it.
Yep.
We're telling them, hey man, I can't. What we're actually saying is the capacity at which I can help you is not going to be at 100% right now because I need rest. So I'd rather, instead of me giving you piss poor, inadequate results of whatever you're about to ask me to help you do, I will now prioritize my rest so that in the event that I may follow with you again later or that I can ask for your help later, I will now be in a better position to help you. And that keen level of observation, knowing when it's time to give rest, knowing who your key players are, that's Grace. That's how Grace does her development. It sounds like that is Grace's personal development model. Would I be correct of what we dove into today?
100%. It's like observing people, knowing how you show up best, knowing what brings you the best to show up for other people because you've poured into you. Like, that's the part of the mindset. That's literally it. Like, if I don't read, if I don't take care of my body, if I don't drink water, if I don't sleep, well, duh, I'm gonna not be helpful to other people. And it's like that evolution of personal development. It's like that stuff's so valuable. I've watched it. I've observed that from very 8-figure earners, 7-figure earners, 6-figure earners. It doesn't really matter. I've observed that at their level. And I'm like, if they still pour into themselves before they go and pour into other people, then clearly there's something to that. And so doing that as and building that habit now is a
Yeah.
game changer. Because people think about this. Think about your average friend right now. A is not listening to this podcast because they don't even. They're just like, why would I listen to? They just don't get why this stuff's valuable information. And B, they're definitely they don't have a routine of filling their own cup back, which is why they always say they're busy, which is why they always say they're tired, which is why they say they can't ever get things done. It's because they literally don't understand the very simple principle of filling their own cup up first, filling their mind first, and then being able to lead. Because we always give from rest. We work from rest. We don't work for rest. And when you shift that perspective,
Say that again. Wait, say that again. Say that again. You do what? You do
we
what from
work,
rest?
we work from a place of rest.
Mm.
We don't work for rest. So we don't
Mm.
have to earn our rest. We don't have to earn any of it because it's already given to us. And we actually, when we operate in alignment with how the world was literally created, how humans were actually created, it was from rest, not for rest. And that biggest shift for me has completely changed the way I operate in business and in
Oh,
life.
I like that so much, and I wanna just finish off with not only just a thank you for being here. This is the first of many amazing conversations, and I think Grace, you have eloquently set the standard for those who are going to be coming on here. The ability to not only articulate yourself, but articulate what you've learned from yourself is truly something that I cherish in our friendship, just because that's something that I learned from you, like the ability to articulate you, be able to articulate in understanding your role, your positioning, observing yourself, taking those attachments from life and from business, and being able to create the best version of you. So I thank you for that. This has been, it's an honor. If there's anything, I'll ask you this last question.
Mm-hmm.
If I was the younger Grace sitting across from you, and I, as the younger Grace, was interviewing you, what would be a lesson that you would tell your younger Grace? What would be something that you would want your younger Grace to remember now that you're older?
Now that I'm older, I would say um, people don't like character matters, and you'll get into rooms, you'll have access to things based on your character while you develop your skill set. So your skill set doesn't have to come first. And I used to always think I had to have something valuable to give, when in reality, I just needed people to understand my character, and then they allowed me to learn the skill set. And some people, especially starting out in entrepreneurship, you're looking at all these people that have done amazing things and you're kind of idolizing them, and you're like, how do I even add value to them? 9 times out of 10, they just want somebody with a solid character to be around them so that they can pour into and teach you the skill sets. And so, not shooting yourself in the foot and saying like you don't deserve to be in those places, but allowing yourself to be in those places because of your character, because of the way you genuinely connect to people, and then learning the skill sets you need to learn along the way. I think that's a huge, because I stopped myself for so long, be like, oh, I don't deserve to be in these places. I don't deserve to have these roles, or who, what do they think? Like, and I was like, all of these things were being presented to me, and it wasn't because of my skill set. It was because of my character, and those, and I've seen people the opposite, where they have incredible skill sets, but they lack integrity and they lack their character, and therefore they don't get opportunities. And so vice versa. It might not be your skill set, it might be your character. And so really checking how you show up, how you speak about people, how you talk about, because those things travel in the world of business. They travel so fast that you don't even know, and it takes one comment to destroy your reputation. And so when you're above when you're above everything, and nobody has anything on you, it's really easy to operate.
I love that. Develop your character, and the skill sets to amplify your character will come.
Yep.
Grace, I can't thank you enough for this conversation. I really hope that you yourself have a great day. Hope everybody enjoying this. You gain some value. Grace, how can people stay up with you? How can they tap in with you? I know I'm going to put it later on, but like, how can they stay connected with you? How can they find you?
A few different ways. We've got YouTube channel. So it's actually Winning with Grace J on YouTube. Once a week we do a mindset call with one of my other business partners. And then we've got Instagram, where Winning with Grace J, and you can hop into the broadcast channel and make sure you get access to all of the YouTube stuff, YouTube content, and anything that I go live on with that kind of stuff. So that's how you guys can stay connected.
Awesome. Well, Grace, thank you again for this amazing conversation. This has been the Certified Corner Podcast with your boy, TheRealAE, and our special guest, Miss Grace Johnson.
Appreciate it.